Hello, and welcome to Moments in History. I'm Linda Shenton Matchett, author, speaker, and history geek. While researching my stories, I unearthed tons of intriguing information that doesn't end up in my books. So I've created this channel so I can share these tidbits with you. With the recent death of Prince Philip, much has been said about his life, including his military service. I thought this would be a great opportunity to discuss how the royal family served during World War II. By the time Germany invaded Poland in 1939, King George VI had only been king since December of 1936, when his brother Edward abdicated the throne to marry American divorcee Wallis Simpson. George, known as Bertie to his family, resolved to stay in London no matter what happened, and they remained at Buckingham Palace throughout the war. However, they did send their daughters to Windsor Castle, which is located 20 miles outside the city. Despite 9 direct hits to the palace, none of the royal family were injured or killed by the bombs. The king and queen regularly toured areas that suffered bombings, and the queen took an avid interest in what was being done to help people who had lost their homes. After the first bombing of Buckingham Palace on the 13th of September in 1940, she said she felt she could finally look the East End in the face. Pressured to leave the country for Canada, the Queen said, "The children will not leave unless I do. I shall not leave unless their father does, and the King will not leave the country in any circumstances whatsoever." In October of 1940, 14-year-old Princess Elizabeth broadcast a message from the drawing room of Windsor Castle as part of the BBC's Children's Hour. She spoke directly to the children who had been separated from their families as part of the evacuation scheme. She said, "Thousands of you in this country have had to leave your homes and be separated from your fathers and mothers. My sister Margaret Rose and I feel so much for you, as we know from experience what it means to be away from those you love most of all. To you living in new surroundings, we send a message of sympathy, and at the same time, we would like to thank the kind people who have welcomed you to their homes in the country." The following month, in November of 1939, Queen Elizabeth urged British women to contribute to the war effort, and she published the Queen's Book to the Red Cross, with contributions from 50 British authors and artists, with the funds aiding the Red Cross. The King held ranks of Admiral of the Fleet, Field Marshal, and Marshal of the Royal Air Force. He and the Queen inspected troops and visited workplaces. On these occasions, the King always appeared in uniform, and he also went abroad to visit his troops in France and North Africa. It was diligently reported that the family had been issued ration books and clothing coupons, like everyone else, and the King was pictured gazing soulfully at the pigs being fattened for the table at Windsor, just like his subjects who had clubbed together to rear pigs of their own. Princess Elizabeth and Margaret were depicted knitting for the troops. The palace rooms were lit by single light bulbs, and rings were drawn around the royal tubs to limit the depth of baths to 5 inches, just like everyone else. As the war progressed, Princess Elizabeth championed more aspects of wartime life and resilience. In 1943, she was photographed tending her allotment at Windsor Castle as part of the government's Dig for Victory campaign, in which people were urged to use gardens and every spare piece of land to grow vegetables to help combat those food shortages. On the morning of her 16th birthday, Princess Elizabeth undertook her very first inspection of a military regiment during a parade in Windsor Castle. She had been given the role of honorary colonel of Grenadier Guards, which symbolized her military involvement in the war effort. When she turned 18 in 1944, she insisted upon joining the Auxiliary Territorial Service, the women's branch of the British Army. King George made sure that his daughter was not given special privileges or rank in the Army, and she started as a second subaltern in the ATS like everyone else, and was only later promoted to junior commander, which is the equivalent of captain. She began her training as a mechanic in March 1945. She undertook a driving and vehicle maintenance course at Aldershot, qualifying on April the 14th. Newspapers at the time dubbed her Princess Auto Mechanic. Her younger sister, Princess Margaret, was a Girl Guide and then later joined the Sea Rangers. So what about King George's siblings? Well, his brother Edward, the newly minted Prince of Wales, was living in France in 1939, but fled to Portugal, where the Nazis unsuccessfully attempted to abduct him. Many historians have suggested that Hitler was prepared to reinstate Edward as king in the hope of establishing a fascist Britain. It's also widely believed that the Duke and Duchess sympathized with fascism before and during the Second World War. In July 1940, he was appointed governor of the Bahamas, and many think this was done to minimize the Duchess and Duke's opportunities to act on their feelings. After the war, the Duke admitted in his memoirs that he admired the Germans, but he denied being pro-Nazi. Of Hitler, he said, "The Führer struck me as somewhat ridiculous, with his theatrical posturings and his bombastic pretensions." Prince George was the fourth son of George V and became the first English royal to die on active service since King Richard III fell at the Battle of Bosworth in 1485. George had been in the Navy and worked as a civil servant, another royal first. An air commodore in the RAF, he was killed when a plane taking him to inspect air bases in Iceland crashed into a hillside in Scotland. 2 years younger than the king, Prince Henry was a career soldier, although he had retired from the 10th Hussars in 1937. He was appointed Chief Liaison Officer to the British Expeditionary Force in France and was wounded during the retreat to Dunkirk. He then served as second in command of the 20th Armored Brigade. However, he was not risked in combat after the Duke of Kent was killed. At the outbreak of World War II, the Princess Royal Mary became Chief Controller and later Controller Commandant of the Auxiliary Territorial Service, renamed the Women's Royal Army Corps in 1949. In that capacity, she traveled across the country, visited its units, as well as wartime canteens and other welfare organizations. After the death of her brother, the Duke of Kent, she became president of Papworth Hospital. Although not yet part of the family, Prince Philip served with distinction in the Royal Navy during the war. He had been born in Greece, but his family was exiled from that country when he was but 18 months old. After being educated in France, Germany, and Great Britain, he joined the Royal Navy in 1939 at the age of 18. In 1940, he was assigned to the battleship HMS Ramillies in the Indian Ocean, and then to the battleship HMS Valiant in the Mediterranean. There he participated in the Battle of Cape Matapan in March of 1941 and earned a commendation for his command of a searchlight crew. After return to Britain for more courses, he served on the destroyer HMS Wallace, escorting convoys on Britain's east coast and participating in the invasion of Sicily, which was known as Operation Husky, in July of 1943. In 1942, at the age of 21, he became First Lieutenant of the Wallace, one of the youngest men to hold that rank. In 1944, he became First Lieutenant of the brand new destroyer HMS Welk, which was served in the Indian Ocean. The Whelp and Prince William were present for the Japanese surrender in Tokyo Bay on September 2, 1945. I hope you've enjoyed today's Moments in Histories. If you'd like to learn even more history, please stop by my blog, which is located at www.lindashentonmatchett.com. And please consider subscribing to my channel. Click the bell icon to receive notifications of new episodes that generally release on the second and fourth Fridays of each month. Thanks for watching, and have a great rest of your day.